He loved the fact that the council added the 5-minute public speech at the end of the meeting so he could get his thoughts in instead of waiting 2 weeks to come back to the council meeting when things kind of settled down. But he wanted to get his thoughts in at the end of the meetings and thought that was a great idea. I can only imagine what George would think of what happened with this council and the town last Tuesday. And I won't get into that at this point because I'm going to wait for another time to talk about that. But I am proud to say that George was a friend. He was a friend to the town. He was a friend to this council, to many staff members. He spoke his mind, like I said, but he always had the best interest of his town in mind. The last thing I'll say, and I may come back at the end, is that I don't know how many people up here remember the Stacy Hodges incident that took place several years back with the Board of Education, which cost this town roughly about $800,000 in expenses. That's going to be nothing compared to what it's going to cost this town for what happened last Tuesday. And I can say that because I've done my research, and I know what's going on, and I've sat in many of these seats over many years. And I started out when I was 27 years old, but I think you beat me by age by a few years. I'm glad the way Mr. O'Connor voted last Tuesday. And I just want you to know it's going to cost this town millions of dollars by the time we get done, and a real black mark on this town. And I have to say, I'm ashamed of all of you. Thank you. With the exception of Mr. O'Connor.
Thank you. Ms. Zerblis.
Cindy Zerblis, 119 Two Red Highway. I forgot my cheaters because I ran out of the house so quick, so I hope I don't stumble too much. But I'm here tonight to speak to council about the recent hearing that was held last week involving Chief Citran. First of all, I want to say I'm having a real hard time standing up here tonight because many of the individuals involved in the hearing and the situation I happen to really like on a personal level. There's a lot of you that I really do like on a personal level. However, as a resident, taxpayer, huge supporter of the police department, after last week's display by some of council, it was a huge disappointment. I'd like to acknowledge Councilman O'Connor, who had the guts, though, to recognize a train crash in the making in his decision to break from the group. Kudos to you, Councilman. I sat through the entire hearing, listening to arguments presented by both sides, and frankly, one of the biggest red flags I heard was right in Attorney Plum's opening argument, and I quote, "The position of Chief of Police is not and never should be a lifetime appointment." As council members, I'd like to ask you exactly, what does that mean? Was he saying the chief has served his time, he's old now, and should just move along? Because with an opening statement like that, it sure sounds like it. It sounded very clear to me like age discrimination. I'm also very confused why, when Chief Citran's attorney asked for his personal records to be released, why they were not released. The last I checked, if a personnel record is requested under Section 1-214 of the Connecticut General Statutes, a public agency is obligated to release the record pending there is no invasion of privacy. And seeing as though it's his record, I would say there is no invasion of privacy. So as an outsider looking in, or should I say as a taxpayer looking in, I'm wondering why this record was not released. I've attended many public hearings in my lifetime, and that hearing had to be one of the most unfair hearings I've ever seen. The hearing is supposed to be impartial, and in no way was that hearing impartial. Chief Citran's attorney was not allowed to present evidence during the hearing. I found this to be very disturbing, and I am not the only resident that feels this way. You would think council would want to understand all parts before they made a major decision to remove Chief from his duties. Just a few of the issues, the two issues above are two major red flags that warranted more questions by council that night. As a taxpayer, I do not understand how council sat silent, and I'm very nervous as to what it's going to cost us. The entire process sounded like a huge witch hunt, and I do not understand why none of you didn't ask more questions. I know during the hearing there was evidence of past issues going on in the police department. which leads me to ask another question. It sounds to me that our previous mayor knew full well that there was issues going on. If this is the case, this is another reason why I'm having a hard time standing up here in front of Mayor Rowell and council asking these questions. It sounds like the council may have been handed off a smoking gun to handle by the previous administration. Why is it, if there were issues going on prior to this, didn't the previous mayor and town manager handle some of these issues? Perhaps this is why they are not releasing the personnel file, because there's nothing in the personnel file to back up taking any disciplinary actions. Or was it because the previous mayor didn't want to rock the boat before her run for state rep? Was it just more convenient to sweep everything under the rug and act like it wasn't happening and leave it for the next guy? I personally would like an answer to that, because if there were any problems at that point, they should have been handled back then, so we would not find ourselves in this situation. Any one of us that managed people in the past know it's best to nip a problem in the bud, otherwise it's going to turn into a toxic environment. What was described the other night during that hearing by the town claimed a toxic environment. If it was so toxic, why wasn't that environment handled a long time ago, if it was such an issue? My suggestion to council is to move forward with this whole debacle and not continue the fight with Chief Citran. Let the man either go back to his job and allow him to carry out his duties the way he was promised until August 31st, or allow him to retire with some dignity after 47 years of service. He deserves this. He has served our town well and does not deserve to be treated with such disrespect. If the town continues to pursue this, you can guarantee a costly lawsuit costing the taxpayers tons of money, and frankly, I'm tired of opening up my wallet to correct mistakes that government makes. If you think that every move from here forward will not be analyzed by more than a small group that already analyzes everything that goes on at the PD, think again, it will get worse. Don't encourage that behavior, be done with it. Our police department and officers in it have already suffered enough blows in the past years by uneducated residents and people trying to make names for themselves. I'm frankly tired of the drama and just want to see our officers be able to work without distractions, so we can start addressing the fact that 4 times last year, unwelcome individuals decide to come on my property and attempt to take things that don't belong to them. They've suffered enough, and so has our community. Finally, as far as a nationwide search, personally, this taxpayer doesn't feel paying a consultant to do the job that others can do for free. Many towns utilize chiefs from surrounding towns to help search for a new chief. No need to waste more of our money on a consultant. I highly suggest that we immediately utilize chiefs from other towns, or perhaps some residents that have law enforcement experience. We don't need a consultant from out of state, not to mention to tell us who is the best choice for chief of police in our community. And thank you for letting me go a little bit longer. Thank you.
Oh. Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Woodward.
My name is Bob Woodward. I live at 456 Middletown Avenue and have lived there for over 40 years. I want to go back to Monday night's meeting. And I want to say 2 words to you. Thank you for lowering the mill rate, even if only a smidge. You deserve thanks. You didn't let the mill rate become runaway as you didn't last year. And as one of my neighbors said when I shared with him, he said, we can pay our taxes this year and not worry about it. It helps more than you know with people out there. I only want to make 2 suggestions to you. I got into the meeting late on the TV channel, and you ran through the last few motions so fast I couldn't follow them. If you could slow that down, it would have helped. I did call the clerk's office the next day and got the good news from them. I was very grateful. The other thing is, I notice now that we're back live, which is a good feeling, you have cut out the phone input. Maybe for the budget hearing next year, we can do both in-person speaking and people with email and people on the phone and reach more people that way. That's just a suggestion. But mostly for last Monday night, I want to say thank you to all of you. It makes a big difference to many of us in this town.
Thank you. And as far as that comment about virtual and in-person, I got to check with the governor's executive order and whether or not that is allowed. if we can do that. I know both the Connecticut Association of Small Towns and CCM, Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, we're writing something up on that. But it is a good idea. I just got to see if it is.
I don't know that it would cost us money, that's why I didn't know.
Right. I don't believe it would cost money, but it's a matter of freedom of information, you know, what is presented via Zoom or teleconference versus in person, if it can be done or not with our existing laws. So something definitely looking into. Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Clerk.
Good evening, David Kruk, better known as Rocky, if you don't know me. But I came here to talk about the firing of the police chief, and I was very upset. I was here at the hearing, and I'm very disappointed in the council members. I think you decided to take the side of our relatively new town manager over our police chief, who has worked here for 47 years in the police force, 18 as police chief. He has put his life on the line for those 47 years. I don't care what call a police officer gets. Every time they answer a call, they're putting their life on the line. And he risked his life for our town for 47 years, and he's done an exceptional job. And I've been in this town for 22 years. I've seen him. I've seen him at many town council meetings, and I've seen all the praise and smiles you had toward him, and all of a sudden you want to fire him. And because of what? I guess there was some other issues involved with the town manager and him not seeing eye to eye. And then the town manager wants him out. And they write a contract. And he agrees to retire. Now, that would be unfortunate for our town, for such a knowledgeable and experienced police chief who's done an exceptional job to retire, but and then he changes his mind, and then that's just cause to fire him because he changed his mind about retiring. I would be happy that he changed his mind because we need good police chiefs. You know, if you may look somewhere else, but you don't know what you're getting. You don't know. You won't know what you're getting at an interview. You won't know what you're getting till they prove themselves. Well, this police chief has proven himself, and I'll go to my notes. This police chief, well, one thing that the hearing did bring that I didn't know about, it shed light to some interference by our town manager within the police department. Now, I don't know how much of this is true. That may be decided in court. And I don't know if this Stacey Hodges comparison is right or wrong, but I was here through the Stacey Hodges hearings, and the town decided to fight Stacey Hodges. I knew she would win. And it cost, and she hired some good attorneys, and it cost the town, like they said, $800,000 because the town wanted to win. And I knew the town would lose, and she won. And it didn't go to court because they knew if it did go to court, she would have won, and it would cost the town even more than $800,000. So I hope I don't know if this is comparable, but because I don't have all the information, but during that hearings, it did bring up some really kind of disturbing information about what lengths the town manager has gone to oust our police chiefs, to almost to harass them within the police department, to intervene in police operations, which include promotions, talking to officers to influence them. I don't know if any of this is true. If it goes to court, it will come out. But I hope it doesn't go to court, because I hope you reinstate him. I believe you do have the power to reinstate our chief and to end this right now, because I don't believe supporting the town manager because he's our town manager. I don't believe you councilmen are followers of the town manager. He's not the boss. You got to work together, and you have just as much, the councilmen have just as much as influences on the decisions as the town councilman, as a town manager. So I'm not happy about this decision. I think it was a wrong decision, especially for the reasons that were revealed in this hearing, which was not much, change his mind about retiring. That's not a good reason. And I think it was a mistake, and I think it shows a lot of disrespect for a 47-year-old town employee who devoted so much of his time to protecting us and keeping us safe. And I was surprised, to be honest, except for, I was proud of Dan O'Connor for standing his ground and supporting our police. Because there were times here where someone from the anti-cop movement has come here and said, you gotta fire your police chief, defund the police, fire, they say that at all town council meetings, these anti-cop movements, they go into town council, they recommend firing the police chief. I said, well, that won't have any influence on the town council, because they could see through that, but maybe it did. Maybe the town manager said, oh, maybe we should fire our police chief because of this anti-cop movement. We don't want to be on the outside of that. I don't know. There's a lot I don't know, and I hope this ends soon. I hope it doesn't go to court, and I hope you reinstate him. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Young.
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. George Rue, I met him back in 1998, 1999. We palled up with the taxpayers, and we had a lot of good years. We did a lot of things. We kept up our friendship up near the end, only up till the last couple of weeks. And, sorry to hear that he is gone. He's just too bad. I don't know if we'll ever see another person like George Rue again. Next, at the last town council meeting, I had mentioned back a meeting or two earlier, you had a fire tanker truck that was going to be repaired. And it was like almost $170,000 for repairs. And I asked at that meeting, and I think I asked at the last meeting, what were the miles on that particular vehicle? You didn't answer me at the last meeting, last 2 weeks ago. Maybe you'll answer me tonight. And it would be nice to know what year it was, because, I'd have to go back to the notes, but I think it might have been a 2006 or so, but I'm not certain. But it would be good to know what the total miles were, and maybe the average miles, because that truck was in a wreck position. I don't know what happened to it, why it cost so much money. And but let's hear what the miles are. Third, at the last town council meeting, the last special town council meeting, you held your budget deliberations. And I got to tell you, I'm very dissatisfied with what came out of that. Even though we had a zero increase, we should have had a negative increase. It should have gone into the negative. You've been in office now for more than a year and a half, Mayor, and your team. The first time around, you skimmed off $62,000 roughly in savings. This year, you should have had a whacker against that budget, against the current expenditures, and revamping and finding ways of cutting costs. But you didn't do that. Instead, you took money from reserve, which was already taxed money. You took $425,000 from the Biden money, which you being a Republican, I don't know why you would have taken the Biden money. You took current year savings or monies that did not get spent to pay for some articles or items, whatever they might be. And in the end, yeah, it was a zero, but it should have been 4, 5, 6, 7% negative from what we currently had. You've had the time to do it. You ran on a record that you were going to hold taxes down, and to me, that's holding taxes down, backing them off. And we didn't see that. Now, getting into next year, probably you will rely on more Biden money to keep it at zero. Instead of doing what really needs to be done in this town, we have way too much fat. Just think of that fire engine that had so much rust on it, Mayor. It was only a 2006, loaded with rust, and the tank itself had to have repair jobs done. What are our employees doing to that equipment? We have Sally, what's her name, or whatever that woman's name is, that comes in here every now and then from Physical Services, who talks about a dump truck or a payloader that's all, the floor is rotted out. Come on, guys. Our worker, and then we praise our workers. They let the machinery go to heck and then praise them. Oh, we have such good workers. And we end up buying another whatever, payloader or bigger or whatever heck we're buying, dump trucks, which costs a lot of money, but our people who we have on staff aren't taking care of them. And that's a shame. That's a shame, and I just don't understand how that goes along with you folks. You should be criticizing those employees. Next, I've heard some people tonight talk about the hearing last Tuesday. I didn't attend. I didn't attend the meeting, but my neighbor over Saturday, my neighbor came over to me and asked me what the outcome was and how, he was asking me different questions because he says that they showed a picture and there I was sitting there during the newscast, but I wasn't there on Tuesday night. I was here on Monday night. So you want to talk about bad government, lousy news media, and that's what we have, okay? I could go on, but I'm sure my 5-minute time is up, isn't it? Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak? First public comment section. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the agenda. Council reports. Are there any council reports from any members of council? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, just a quick rundown on planning and zoning. There hasn't been much activity. This past meeting was discussing a parking lot that's being put in behind Leo's Pizza to try to alleviate some of the parking situation there. But I did want to just mention that going down the Celestine Highway from Hartford line heading south, there's currently 6 projects that were underway. You have Popeyes on Jordan Lane that is moving along at a rapid pace. Grand Cafe has opened. That was in the bookstore there. Donut Station is, I would expect it to be open very soon. We have an oil change business, Valvoline oil change, going in at the car wash. They've done all the excavation. They're starting to work on foundation. The Chase Bank is moving along. The steel structure's all up. And the medical office buildings coming along. Exterior's completed. They're working on parking lots and roadways and that sort of thing. So it's just, you know, I thought that was quite an accomplishment to have 6 projects going on at the same time. That's all I have.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Okay. Council comments. Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I have a couple items I'd like to discuss. Regarding the fire truck, engine 11, one of our residents has asked a couple times about mileage. The mileage that was reported to me is 20,134 total miles. It's a 2003 vehicle. Works out to 1,100 miles per year. I did want to ask the town manager if he could get us an update of what's going on with the fire truck. We were here May 21st, I believe. May 3rd, I'm sorry. And we approved the repair by Shipman's Fire Equipment Company. And on that proposal that was given to us, totaling $170,000, there was a number of items that were of a mechanical nature that our town staff was capable of doing. And there was mention of our mechanics traveling to the site of shipments and doing some of those items. We talked about brake work, suspension bushings, gasket leak on a pinion, brake drums, PTO pump removal. We never got into how much each of those items was valued at. And so my questions are, have we accomplished those jobs? And how much money did we save by doing those items? I also would like to know if the vehicle has been fully disassembled now and inspected, and did they find other items that were requiring repair? And if so, what is that going to do for cost? And lastly, I did a little research about the truck itself. The actual frame is built by Sutphen. It's not an off-the-shelf chassis that they procure from another company. They design and fabricate the frame. And we heard about deficiency in the frame. We heard about cracks in the chassis. We heard about excessive rust. We heard about inadequate support for this very heavy water tank. And we did hear that it was rusted. And I am questioning whether the design was proper. This truck only has 20,000 miles on it. I don't think there should be structural issues with the frame, such as cracking, such as deterioration due to undersized support structures. And I think we should go back to the manufacturer and ask for some compensation. Not, of course, not everything, but something. They appear to be our prime supplier of fire equipment in the future. So, you know, we've spent $1.5 million on 2 new engines recently, and I assume we're going to continue to purchase vehicles through that company, and I think we should at least ask the question for some kind of compensation or explanation of why a frame would crack with 20,000 miles on it. So, that's what I have.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Anybody else for Councilman Biggs?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, first, I just want to thank you for the proclamation for Juneteenth. I would like to say that, you know, in our town, with the with the current population, African Americans make up about 2% of our population. With that being said, Juneteenth, for those that have not experienced it or celebrated before, it is very meaningful because it brings up a lot of conversation that really dives into the history of the African American population within the nation. So with that being said, although Juneteenth has been made a federal holiday, many of the conversations that have happened this weekend is we have a long way to go. There's a lot of things that are on the table, whether it be legislation or just general policies and procedures of systemic issues that still need to be addressed. So small steps, but we will get there, and I just want to thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman. Anybody else? Okay. I didn't have anything truly prepared because I think I talked to the town manager, who's probably going to be covering a lot of what I was going to say, but I did appreciate the town, or the deputy mayor mentioning some of the projects going on along Southstein Highway, but there are some additional buildings that I would like to see developed on there, and we are in conversations with some folks on those as well, so hopefully we'll see some more development down there. Additionally, I am getting some concerns from some residents about some of the businesses in Old Weathersfield, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. You get businesses into a already congested area. We're dealing with parking situations on Main Street and some of the side streets. We are working to, take care of some of those issues, but like I said, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You want people, you want folks to come in, you want the restaurants and the businesses full, but we just have to find a way to put the cars off the streets. So we are working on that. Additionally, it is the summer months, and people, not only do they like to go outside and enjoy themselves at restaurants, but also kudos to Kathy Bagley and her team from the Parks and Rec. This year we did open both pools. Last year, unfortunately, we couldn't open Willard, but I did see folks enjoying both pools over the weekend. So hats off to the Parks and Rec Department for getting those up and running. I think this is, I think we've seen the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully people will start to get back to normal, and having some outdoor summer fun for them, not only in the pools, but also our recreation programs, is good to see. So thank you, Kathy. With that, I'll turn it over to the town manager for his report.
Thank you, Mayor, and to the council. I'll try to keep my comments brief. First announcement is due to COVID. Over the past year, Town Hall had been open by appointment only with some limited exceptions. As you recall, on June 7th, 2021, with that first council meeting that we had, Town Hall officially resumed their normal operating hours, with the main door being open to the public, with encouraging individuals to social distance at all times and wear masks, unless you're working within certain cohorts. For example, we've had a lot of exposure with each other, and obviously paying close attention to vaccination and paying attention, to the rates within the state and within the town. Our numbers are much lower, and we feel comfortable going into the summer months with making these steps. So staff and Central Connecticut Health District continue to review the townwide reopening of other facilities throughout town, as well as evaluating programming that's available to residents. And just a reminder, residents are encouraged to reach out to those departments or the organizations that use town buildings to check on specific schedules. For example, the Historical Society, and what they have running for programming within the Keeney Memorial, also within the Senior Center. There's a number of limited programming taking place, as we have to be cautious simply because the Keeney Center has a number of uses, including not Keeney Center. Community Center has a number of uses, including for child care facilities as well as adults. So we have to keep in mind that we need to balance priorities. Summer hours have begun for Town Hall. That means staff reduced their lunch breaks, and offices remain open to serve the public late on Thursday until 6 p.m. We then close Friday at 1. Finance Department, which includes the assessors and tax office, are working hard to produce the annual tax bills because the council voted last Monday to approve the current tax levy. So there's a strong push to get those bills out as soon as possible to provide taxpayers as much time as possible to pay. As the mayor mentioned, pools are open with no advance reservations required, which I know is a breath of fresh air for Kathy. Her team did a great job last year trying to coordinate to make sure that as many people as possible could get filled in with this tight schedule that was created. The summer brochure is also available online, and Parks and Rec is offering a strong array of options for adults and youth of all ages, including their therapeutic rec programming. So I recommend that individuals go online and see what's available this year. And currently conducting a search for the next chief of police using strategic government resources to serve as our search consultants. As we started that process, SGR is working with stakeholders to develop the position profile brochure, and that's going to be used to market the position. And we anticipate that brochure will be out probably within the next 7 to 10 days, plus or minus. And other interesting things, I know Senior Center June activities are including virtual programs and small group programming within the community center. I recommend, again, calling Parks and Recreation or looking online at the Weathersfield website, at the town website, specifically under the Senior Center. And there was one other update I wanted to give. Spring paving program is well underway as we're now into the summer, and I've seen the crews out there working on a number of streets. Wolcott Hill Road reconstruction, as council recalls, beginning of May, you awarded additional funds to the program, and I know the engineering department, which has been down 2 engineers for the last probably 6 or 7 months, have been doing their best to get moving forward so that project can begin. And again, as part of that, and even though there's items similar to our agenda, already looking forward to the fall, where our crack seal program is also well underway. And other than that, I'll end there.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Sue, from the Town Clerk's Office?
Thank you, Mayor. Being that it's June, the town clerk's office is in the middle of dog licensing season right now, and as of today, we've issued 810 dog licenses, so we're doing well in that regard, and most of them have been through the mail.
Great, thank you. Before we move over to council action, I would like to just amend the agenda, or first open the agenda to amend it. There is in our packet a resignation from the Planning and Zoning Commission. That is not a resignation. The alternate member of P&Z simply has decided not to seek reappointment. Their appointment ends on 6/30. So I guess can I get a motion to remove the one resignation that is on tonight's agenda?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Ayes have it. Thank you. I don't believe we have any appointments, nor approvals of any ordinances and resolutions, nor any unfinished business from before. So we do have item 3A, or B3A, excuse me, and this is a council meeting schedule, summer amendment. So if you recall, last fall, I believe it was, we adopted the calendar for 2021, and this town council calendar for 2021. Typically, we do only meet once in July and once in August, just because families are on vacation, including many of those up here. But we always make it a point that if we can't meet, and we do need to meet, we can always schedule a special meeting with advance notice. So does anybody have any questions about that council item? Again, we're probably just going to go down to just one in July and one in August. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to amend the council schedule by eliminating the July 19th and August 16th, 2021 council meetings.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Ayes have it. Thank you. I did see Kathy here. She took off her mask, so she's prepared to speak. The next item is council item B3B. This is the 2021 Child Care Grant for the Learning Center provided by the Parks and Rec. So, Kathy, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Good evening. Kathy Bagley, Parks and Recreation Director and Social Needs Services Director. This grant came up unexpectedly from the Office of Early Childhood for licensed child care centers, preschools, and many different child care across the state. And our preschool in our community center, the TLC preschool, is a licensed preschool. So they got notification of it, and these are through the rescue funds from the federal government that go down to the state, and they give an award. They will give an award to different licensed child care situations, and staff saw it and brought it to our attention, and we feel it's a good opportunity to move forward, because these funds, we're eligible for up to the $15,000 funds that will allow us to use it for operational funds, personnel, maintenance, supplies, training for staff. So it's a lot, it gives you a lot of flexibility. And particularly, it's looked at to help the child care businesses in our state stay stable and be able to actually operate and have spaces for children. So it was a very quick turnaround. So we did put an application in, and then as soon as we could, we came to council to get it, if we are, when we are approved, kind of be positive that we could go ahead with that.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions for Kathy? My only question would be, is this part of the Accelerate CT grant program, or is this a separate grant?
This is separate through the Office of Early Childhood,
Oh,
so it's a different department.
Gotcha, okay. And, as residents are going back to work, many of them, working remotely and found themselves in a difficult position. A lot of the childcare, either a parent or grandparent were unable to do it because of COVID restrictions and wanted to keep everybody safe. But also, a lot of the childcare programs had just, stopped during that period. So I know the Parks and Rec provides, an alternative to private daycare, and it's probably one of the best in the state to be able to afford for a lot of our residents. So I think this is a great use of these funds to, as people start to get back to work, they begin to need childcare, and obviously during the summer months, no different than any other time, but it's just a perfect opportunity for Parks and Rec to be able to utilize these to supplement any childcare that they may need. Okay. No other, Councilman Hill.
Real quick, Mayor, thank you. Kathy, do you know, is this a one-time allotment for the grant, or do you know if the town will be able to reapply after, say, a year or so?
As far as I know, it's a one-time. I honestly couldn't tell you, reading all the information that came out, it didn't say it would be ongoing.
Yeah.
It just said it was for now and to get your application in.
Gotcha, okay. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, is there a motion for this item?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the town manager to accept a child care program stabilization grant from the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood in the amount of $15,360 for the Parks and Recreation TLC preschool program.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Next, we're going to item B3C, and this is a change from where we were last Monday. I think I'll turn it over to our town manager shortly, but for those that were here for the budget presentation or budget deliberations last week, there were a number of CIP projects that we had voted in favor of, and two of them had to deal with engineering, and was it just the dam repairs and the Copper Mill culvert design? Yes. Yep, two of those programs. In talking with Department Head Derek Greger from engineering, those projects will most likely not get off the ground this next fiscal year. So the town manager and Mike O'Neill from the finance department thought it would be wise to use some of that CIP funding to pay for two things for the fire department. So with that said, I'll turn it over to our town manager for further explanation.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually think that's a perfect explanation, but I can kind of fill in. Yeah, no, just in review with Derek Greger, he felt that based off of, as I said earlier during the mayor's town manager's report, because he was down 2 out of 3 engineers for the past 8 months, it was probably in the best interest of the community to use those dollars in a different fashion and function. In discussion with Mike O'Neill, it was determined that the council has the authority to amend an appropriation prior to it being allocated, right? So we haven't started the fiscal year yet, and because we can make the money or the funding actually works for the $70,000 in engineering to move it to $70,000 between 2 projects, specifically for the fire department, one at Station 2 to address, to do architectural drawings to determine if the building could be suited for, to expand to a female locker room, since we're starting to expand the number of volunteer firefighters available, and we wanted to make that an option. And then the second component is to purchase exhaust extractors or large fans, essentially, so that they, during idle, both prior to going to a fire, and then upon return, the engine's idle in the bay for a long period of time, and for health purposes, to evacuate the exhaust from within the building.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Any questions for this item? Councilman Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. Gary, could you talk more about the architectural design and the cost? I'm unfamiliar with, the cost just seems it's $25,000 just to determine whether it's possible to add the locker room. Is that something that's kind of an industry standard, or is that something we go out to bid for, or, how did we land on that number, I suppose?
Oh, for the 25,000, that was based off of some just conversations with architectural design firms that have done this type of work before, just to get an idea of what it might cost. It's schematic design. It's not as simple as just drawing it out on a piece of paper, but because of the way the building is laid out, because there's elevation issues, because the bathrooms are located on the lower level, to be able to expand and evaluate where piping is, whether or not we need to address larger issues as part of the construction project. It was.
I assume, I know this goes without saying, but I assume that this cannot be done in-house. It goes beyond the capability of any town employees.
I looked over to Sally, and she's just shaking her head. The design component or the actual construction component? The design component cannot be done. You would need stamp drawings at some point, and so this gets us to a further phase so that we could bid it out. So it's not something staff could do in terms of the design component. As I mentioned, the engineering department is already taxed, and they're very talented, but not necessarily architects, or not architects. Yep.
If I could just add a couple comments. I was on the CIAC committee for these projects, and if I recall correctly, this actually started at $50,000 for this program, so it got knocked down substantially. And we're not just talking about reconfiguring the interior structure of the building to accommodate the facilities for female firefighters. It's most likely going to be an addition involving foundations and all kinds of structural work, so could be a fairly substantial project by the time it gets figured out.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager, or Mr. Deputy Mayor.
It's twice.
I know.
Again,
I'm looking over at you and I'm hearing. Anything else, Mr. Town Manager, on this?
Nope, not on that.
Okay. Is there a motion for this?
I can make a motion to reallocate $70,000 from fiscal year 2022 CIP projects, town dam repairs and replacement of Copper Mill Road culvert over Gulf Brook to the preliminary design to Fire Station 2, additional schematic architectural design, and Fire Station 1, 2, and 3 exhaust extractors in the amounts previously recommended.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded for this item. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. And I will say in follow-up that I think Gary had mentioned, and I think Tom may have mentioned as well, the engineering department is down 2 engineers. We are currently posted those positions, or at least one position has been posted.
I think we're now down 1, and I believe the second one has gone through a round of interviews and they've made an offer, or they're in the process of making an offer.
Okay.
But
So our engineering department will be back to full staff if the offer is accepted.
correct, right.
Okay, that's
And
good
we're
to know.
working through the projects, and I think I commend Derek Greger, who will be here shortly, for the amount of work he has been able to complete in this period of time.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to item B4A, and I did see Sally come in. This is the Hanmer boiler replacement. Again, this is something, and I believe it even predates me on this council from 2013, but this has been something that has been discussed at least the last 10 to 15 years, replacing these boilers. I believe our notes have it at 57 years old. Some would say that's not that old. Others would say for mechanical life of a boiler, it's probably well past its due. I'll turn it over to you, Sally, to kind of fill in the details about these two and the need for the replacement.
Thank you. Sally Katz, Director of Physical Services. As you said, this is a project which encompasses the replacement of the boiler system at Hanmer. The boilers not only produce heat for hot water, but heat for the building. The boilers are approximately 57 years old, and they have far outlived their useful life. 3 years ago, when I was up here talking about the things we don't know about the schools when physical services took them over, the facilities, the conditions of the facilities was one of the things that we knew we were going to have to investigate once we became responsible for them. In working with the Board of Education on some projects that they are currently working on, just to inform the council, there is a report that states that the current school facilities are looking at a $30+ million deferred maintenance issues today. These issues are not going away. And issues like the boilers, which are infrastructure, which are necessary parts of the building, are these types of projects that are ongoing. With a school maintenance budget of a little over $300,000 to perform maintenance and minor projects across the schools, and $900,000 for CIP projects to go across the town, it is a fight for funding to have projects done. And I don't mean fight, we have a spirited conversation about how those funds will be allotted. A little bit of background, again, the Hanmer Boilers being 57 years old, when I came to you a few months ago and requested funding to be able to add glycol into the system in order to keep the system from freezing, because we needed to keep maximum ventilation in the schools because of COVID, we knew that based on the engineer's report that was provided to you, we were running a risk that a leak or leaks may occur in these boilers. However, we had to take the risk and add the glycol, or we would not have been able to open the school. At the time that the CIP projects were coming up for a vote, I had to make the decision as to which projects we were going to pursue for funding. At the time that that process was taking place and are ongoing, the roofs at Highcrest and the issues that we're having with the portables at Charles Wright were imminent. They were continuing to damage those facilities, and while the boilers at Hanmer were there, at that point they were stable. So that is why the Hanmer Boilers was not my first request when it went to CIP. The roofing at Highcrest has continual and very difficult leaks going on in that school. And we've discussed at length the portable units, both previously at Highcrest and at Charles Wright. So it's not that these projects were not known, but when you're trying to weigh the acuteness of a number of different projects, we had to deal with other ones first. As I said, this, and I'll pass some of these pictures around, for any of you who don't know what an inside of a boiler looks like, this is it. And unfortunately, you could tell the wear of time on these boilers. This is one of the boilers did have a leak. We found one company that was willing to come and try doing a repair. Their repair was to plug one of these tubes. They could not repair it. They had to take it out of commission. This is the situation that we're dealing with the boilers. Knowing that, we engaged an engineer, so I'll give this to you. We engaged an engineer to do a full report on the boilers at Hanmer. Currently, the boilers, when they are running at about a 70% efficiency. A new standard boiler will operate at approximately 80% efficiency. The industries are going now to high-efficiency condensing boilers, which can run upward of 94% efficiency. We are proposing, the engineer has proposed to install the high efficiency condensing boilers, knowing that during the heating season part of the year, we may not reach the 94% efficiency. We may drop it down to 88% because of the temperature of the water that is needed for the system. But we will still, at a minimum, be operating at an 88% efficiency versus the 70% efficiency that we are currently under. It is an expensive project, I certainly understand that, but there's also a reason for pursuing the energy efficiency boilers. And that is we will have the opportunity to control them. In a standard boiler, you turn it on or you turn it off. That's it. It either goes or it doesn't. In these condensing boilers, we can literally control, we can phase them, we can modulate them, we can dial them up when it's very cold, and we can dial them down when we are not in heating season, and we will see an energy savings. Whether you go with a standard boiler or whether you go with a high efficiency condensing boiler, we will still have to do new piping and the new work that goes into demoing the old system and putting in a new system. And so understanding that while the high efficiency boilers are more expensive than a standard boiler, the peripheries other than the actual boiler itself will remain consistent. Knowing the cost of this project, we went out and spoke with Eversource to see if we would have any rebates available. Eversource said to us, yes, rebates are available. However, you have to have the project funded before they would tell us a rebate rate. In this particular project, the rebate comes from the delta between purchasing a standard boiler and purchasing a high efficiency boiler, because that's where your energy savings comes from. The project itself, replacing the boiler, is not up for a rebate. The controls part of this project is rebate eligible, but the controls are only on the high performance condensing boilers. So it is a two-part project. So we are hoping that we would be able to package the delta between the standard boiler and the high efficiency condensing boiler and the controls package and bring that to Eversource for a rebate. So that's pretty much, I mean, that's where we are at this point as far as the energy savings and what we can get out of it. There has been the question floated around, we're going to leave Hanmer at some point. There's been questions about a new school. We are looking at a minimum of 5 to 6 years. And that's if you started the design process of a new school right now before a school would open. So we are looking at 5 or 6 years that we need to keep Hanmer going. If we don't replace the boilers and they go down and they cannot be repaired, then the Board of Ed would either have to decide to go remote, or we would have to try to bring in some form of exterior boiler, which would then have to cut into the building and still deal with all of the piping, which does have an asbestos component to it. And there is an uncertainty as to whether or not that would even be operational. And so, yes, I come up to you today presenting kind of a dire situation. But it is the world in which I live in right now. And if there's any more information that I can give to you, I will try to answer as best as I can.
Thank you, Sally. Any questions for Sally? Councilwoman Pelletier?
I have a question actually for the town manager about the funding source for this. Some of the paperwork we got in our packet accompanying this project indicates that the addition of the glycol in the system may have hastened the demise of the boilers. And the glycol was necessary to comply with the COVID mitigation strategy that were set forth by the state. I was wondering if the American Rescue Plan funds can therefore be paid to, can be used to pay for this project, because it could be argued that it's necessary due to COVID mitigation strategies.
Sure. Thank you, Counselor. Yes, that's correct. We have the same thought process, that we believe that this would qualify under the American Rescue Plan funds, and that is the intention, to use those in that manner. Simply because we still have to meet the ventilation requirements associated or going forward, and it would be the same argument that we would make would be, in order to meet that ventilation, we need to switch out the boiler system, we need to switch out the heating system, but we still need to meet those requirements, and here's a funding source to do so.
Currently, although it is the first day of summer, heating season is less than 4 months away. And the CDC and the Connecticut Department of Public Health have not changed their recommendations and requirements for ventilations in the schools. So yes, we would be having to do the same procedure next year as we would this year.
Thanks.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I have a couple questions, Sally. Appreciate all the information. The information from the engineer and the executive summary was very helpful. I'm baffled by Eversource's reluctance to give us a definitive answer on the rebate. I worked with Eversource on lighting projects on commercial buildings. All the changes were reviewed by an engineer. They calculated their savings just the same way your engineer did with the heating. And we figured out all the dollars and cents before we agreed to do the project. And I just can't accept that they won't agree to some kind of, it's going to be X percentage. That's how we make our decision. Funding source set aside, I don't agree with the pricing, regardless if it's going to be paid with ARP funds or our own tax dollars. I think we should know what we're getting into, and we can't know that without knowing what the rebates are going to be. We talk about the control system being entirely applicable to the rebates, but we don't know how much the rebates are going to be. My other significant problem is we don't have any money in here for asbestos remediation. We know we're going to open up a can of worms once we start going in there. There's some discussion about taking windows out to, be able to move the boilers out of the building. We've been down that road with sealants and insulation on pipes and all those things, so.
I can answer your question on that. Because we had been anticipating the potential for doing this project earlier this year, we had put in and worked with our Department of Finance to utilize current operating funds and utilizing state bid contracts for asbestos removal, because we had hoped and had planned for the potential of being able to do that work prior to the end of this fiscal year. So that is why it's not part of.
How much is it, though?
It's approximately $30,000.
Okay, and everyone feels that's adequate to?
Yes.
Okay. I would have rather seen that dollar figure added in. Right now we're at 322,000.
Okay.
So the project's really 352.
Okay. And to give you some further information with Eversource, Eversource has a sliding scale now of rebates. They go from 30% to 80%. It depends on how many projects you bundle together, along with, then they decide or help you to figure out your maximum potential rebate. If you give them one project, it could be as little as 30%. If you go up to 2 projects, it could be more, with 3 projects at a maximum of an 80% reimbursable. And that's why, you know, I gave to you in the executive summary, if at the low end it's a 30% reimbursable, on the delta, that is the amount, all the way up to the 80%.
That's the one I highlighted, because if it's only 30%, it doesn't make sense doing.
Right,
'Cause
but
it's
if we-
9-year payback. We're
Right.
talking about replacing the building in 5 years.
That's only on the boiler. If we do the boiler and the controls package, then we would be at a higher reimbursable rate.
But this can all be laid out. We can, at this point, we can provide Eversource with the model number, the ratings of the boilers, all the information that they need to determine the cost to operate the system. They should be able to tell us, yeah, you're going to get X percentage. And I think we need to know that before we make the decision, or at least I do. I have another question, comment. We're talking about the corrosiveness of glycol and the problems that it can cause with the system. Are we planning to, once we have this control system in place where they can control the louvers in the individual room heaters, are we going to install glycol into the system?
At this point, we do not believe we would need to, because we would be able to adequately modulate the airflow in the building so as to not have to do that.
And we're still running glycol in 4 or 5 other schools.
Yes, we are.
So, my research shows that glycol needs to be tested, like on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
And you can adjust it with additives to control the corrosive nature of that. So I hope that's on our schedule to be done. Otherwise, we're going to have
Yes, we are.
leaking systems everywhere.
We are monitoring it, and we have a very, very talented HVAC staff that is monitoring. That was also, they participated and worked with the company who added the glycol to the system, so that they are aware of everything that they need to do.
Thank you. I just won't be able to vote in the affirmative for this until we get the pricing, so.
Eversource, as I said, we've had numerous discussions with them, and that is the way that they're running their rebates at this time. One other thing that I do need to say, and it may or may not sway you, we did bid this project out 88 days ago. But because of the budget and other situations going on in town, we didn't get to present it to you. Our bid process is only good for 90 days. And so if we go out to bid again on this project, I would pretty much guarantee that we will see higher prices. That is just some information for you to have.
Councilman Biggs.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What's the life expectancy on these new boiler systems?
Any mechanical system has a life expectancy of a minimum of 20 to 25 years. Depends on how well you maintain it. You could get 57 years, or there could have been a design flaw in a system and you get less amount of time. I will tell you that consistently throughout town, our systems do exceed the normal life expectancy because of the way that they are maintained.
Thank you.
Councilman Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. So Sally, I think you painted quite a picture in terms of what would happen if we don't do anything, and I don't think that's anything anyone here wants to see. So it doesn't seem like something that anyone wants to do. It's something that we really have to do. And a question in terms of the savings, not only on the rebates, but the savings per year on gas, and then adding with whether it's a 30% or an 80%. Knowing that the the board is kind of still going through that process, as you had mentioned, in terms of, one day there will be a new Hanmer, and that is, as you said, if we put the shovel in the ground right now, it would be 5 years. And, I mean, just playing it out, that if this goes to referendum in 2024 and passes, that's the 7-year window. So I think the savings is there. Now, to Councilor Biggs's point, this seems like almost pie in the sky and hoping, but would it be possible to, even if we have a new Hanmer in 7 or 8 years, that, we have this new $300,000, $250,000 boiler that still has 15 years of life expectancy, is it possible to move it into a new facility? Or is that a sunk cost at this point?
It's never been my experience where large building systems have been moved adequately, because as you are installing them, there are changes that are made to make it kind of boutiqued to the building that it is being installed in. That's not to say that it couldn't be done, but I'm not an engineer, and I don't want to give you a false impression. I can just tell you that from my experience, I haven't seen that done to where it's really been productive.
Yeah,
because so much time goes into retooling the machinery to try to fit something new that it never really lines up.
And I understand that. I think when you're spending tens
Absolutely.
of $millions on a new facility, the last thing you want to do is nickel and dime on certain, so I understand that, but again, when it's that, as you understand, that when the cost is this high, we have to.
Right. Which is why it's been discussed for 13 years,
Yeah.
because it is. I mean, this is the type of infrastructure work that it's vitally important in order to operate the school, but it's something that most people don't see.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, Councilman
Go ahead.
O'Connor.
I just want to add on to Councilor Hill's comment. Councilor Hill asked if we could move it. Is it reusable? Could it be used in the new facility, or I assume you were asking about moving it somewhere else?
Oh, no, I was talking about repurposing it in a new building.
How about repurposing it they're probably, if this is all pie in the sky, but if they do renovate Hanmer, I'm not sure they're going to knock it to the ground and start from scratch, and if they decide to build on or do whatever, is that still usable?
Again, I've never seen that type of a system be able to adequately be retooled to go into another building. That doesn't mean that it could not happen. You could, as an owner, task a potential engineering firm that you have contracted with for your new building to in some way incorporate certain pieces of equipment, but I can't give you an answer 5, 6, 7 years down the road. I just don't know that answer.
And I understand, but I wasn't looking at this going into a new building. I was going into an existing building that maybe got bigger. But I guess you're defining that as a new building. Like leaving it where it is.
Yeah.
And as we renovate that building, they still are able to take advantage of it.
To my understanding, at this point, the plan is not to renovate Hanmer. But again, if it is part of the building and the building gets renovated, say renovated as new, then it would be part of the mechanical systems of that building, and you could work around it. If you are raising Hanmer and building new and then trying to take that and put it into the new building, that I have not seen done where it has actually been productive in the long run.
And then the only other comment I would have is, I have to agree with the deputy mayor, is I'm a little at loss why we can't have some inkling of what we're gonna get rebated here. With all the information we have, it's kind of like, trust me, and then we tell them what it is, and they give us the least amount of rebate. Well, that doesn't help us at all, because we've already expended the other money.
Well, that's the scale that they give us. It depends on the number of projects you're trying to bundle together and which projects you're going after to determine whether or not there is a rebate. If we had chosen to go for a standard boiler, there would have been no rebate. If you choose to go for the high-efficiency condensing boilers, then the low would be 30% of the delta between the standard boiler and the high-efficiency. If you put the controls package in with that, then it would raise to 50 to 60% potentially. If you put in another project, say a lighting project, you could be upwards of 80% of the rebate of the total cost of the applicable parts of the projects. So Eversource is giving the town the opportunity to say, you're not just locked in once, say at 30% on this project, and then maybe 20% on this project. That if you add on projects, you can up your potential rebate.
Just a couple more comments, if I may.
Sure.
I think we should try to understand that these boilers are sized to the actual building. So the likelihood of building a new structure with modern individual room units or whatever system they go with, the likelihood of these boilers fitting a new building, it's slim to none. And, you know, along those same lines, if you looked at if you read through this whole report, the boilers that are in the building right now are almost twice as large as they need to be.
Yes.
And they use twice as much fuel. So, you know, not a lot of thought went into it 57 years ago. They didn't quite understand how everything worked. My issue with the rebates is that right now we know we have two projects. We know the boilers are only a small portion of it is applicable to a rebate. The controls, almost all of it, I guess, is applicable. I don't see why we can't go to Eversource saying, we only have two projects. We might do lighting or something later on, but that's not part of the question. We have the two projects, this is the dollars, these are the specs on what we're doing, and we have the money available, the council's ready to vote on it and approve it. We need to know what the rebate's gonna be. I don't see that that's being such a hard question to get an answer to.
So as I said, they gave us the percentage, you know, based on the low end and the high end, based on the delta of just the boiler project. And so we would, and the town manager was on a call with us, we would most likely be looking at somewhere between 30 and 50% rebate with the two projects.
And the rebate is just the difference between, it's 30% of the difference between a regular boiler and an efficient boiler.
On that
So
project, yes.
What is the difference in cost?
51,000,
So it's 30% of 51,000.
right.
That's on the low end, and then in the documentation, there's a scale of what it would be, and then the payback based on a $4,000 savings per year on energy. If we save $6,000 or $8,000 a year on energy, then it's also a faster payback.
I just want to be clear, I understand the need to put the boilers in. We have to have boilers. I'm just stumbling over how much money is it going to cost, and we don't really know. So you could just put it on the paper that says it's $350,000, yes or no.
We have a not to exceed number is another way of saying it, because we know that if we were to go out and do the project on our own without any assistance, that is the number. We will seek every assistance from Eversource that we can to bring that number down once the project is completed.
I think we should be able to go up higher up the food chain at Eversource and get to somebody that can say, you've done all your homework, you've hired engineers, you know, this is not some pie in the sky thing that, oh, we want to put a boiler in, how much money can we get back? It's like, everything's there. It's a calculation.
Councilwoman Pelletier.
I just have a quick comment. I share the deputy mayor's frustration with Eversource, and I agree that they should be able to give us, with the exact specifications that we have here, they should be able to give us the information on what the rebate would actually be. Having said that, in light of the fact that this bid is going to expire in 2 days, and we're in a period of rapid inflation, the project will undoubtedly be higher if we had to rebid it. So I'm frustrated that we're put in this position where we have to, but I feel like this has to be done, and it's only going to get more expensive if we wait. So I will reluctantly support this project.
And we are continuing to have conversations with Eversource all the time.
Thank you. I must concur with Councilwoman Pelletier. I mean, this is the first time that I've heard that we're brushing up against the 90-day window. But I know that we've had these discussions for probably about 2 or 3 months now, and I know waiting on the budget and trying to figure out proper usage of ARPA funds, and glad to know that these we would at least apply for reimbursement with this. To the Deputy Mayor's concerns with Eversource, I think we probably should get on,
Absolutely.
them a little bit more to make sure that we get a better handle on the percentage rebate back. And correct me if I'm wrong, this counts as 2 projects for them because of the
Yes, it does.
switches and the boilers themselves, or because there's 2
The
boilers?
controls and the boiler project. And so dependent upon 2 projects, the controls and the boilers, and dependent upon the outcome of tonight, tomorrow morning I will be on the phone with our representatives of Eversource to pursue a number so that I can come back to you with that number as soon as I can.
Okay. And then, I mean, I started off this conversation, this has been something that's been going on, predating, I think, any of us on the council. I think there are kids that are probably in the workforce right now that were in elementary school at Hanmer when this was a concern. The concern that I had, this contractor understands, as I've mentioned before, whenever we're dealing with any kind of school project, school
Yes.
gets out middle to end of June, kids are going back. I know, having, just talked to Kathy Bagley, we are using schools for Parks and Rec programs. Do they ensure that this would be started and completed before kids start getting off the buses in September?
This project will be, again, dependent upon, right now, we have to have everything brought to us. We will have a seamless operation for school. Whether or not everything will be completed by the end of school, I have to get with the vendor to see what their supply chain situation is, and so I don't want to give anything misleading at this point. He could not give me specifics until, he can put in an order and find out. I will tell you that this is an extremely reputable company. We recently used them at Highcrest to redo some of the situations that we had there in the systems. I also have experience having worked with them at my previous position in Trinity College. They are highly trained. They have worked at schools. They know what they are doing. They work confidently. They work efficiently. And we will get a quality product out of them. They also have a high level of quality control. And moving forward, I am confident that they will provide us what they have provided to us in service in the past.
Okay. Appreciate that. Any other comments, questions for Sally? Okay. Can I get a motion on this item, please?
I'll make a motion to authorize the town to enter into a contract with the Tradesmen of New England for the replacement of the Hanmer Boiler system at $255,564.67, and to CTC Building Solutions for the DDC controls at $66,500.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay?
Abstain.
Okay, so for the record, Sue, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor, 1 abstention. No opposition. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Moving on the agenda, we have a second bid, and I see Derek is here. This is the 2021 fall road paving, and I believe that is Tilcon's. We've got a couple paving on the agenda. Derek's the one-man show in engineering.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Won't be for long, hopefully.
I'm hoping not. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Derek Greger. I'm the town engineer. I'm here tonight for some approvals related to our fall paving program. The next program, we're looking at a number of different roads. Highland Street from Thornbush Road to Collier Road. That was planned as an extension of the lot zip project we just finished last fall, so it would be connecting directly to that and heading east towards Griswold Street. We're doing some reclamation work on Robbins Drive and Heather Drive. That work is following the drainage improvements we had done at Heather and Knott last year. We have a reclamation project on Dudley Road, which is intended to follow MDC water main replacement project that was done last year. That was one of the roads that was on our list. They knew it. They got in and got the water mains done before we got to it. We have a mill and overlay on Coleman Road from Walker Hill Road to Longview Drive. That also follows a MDC water main replacement project. That was done last year, and also it would finish off Coleman Road, which was partially done last fall as part of our paving program. And Chauncey Road is the same situation. It's following an MDC water main replacement project. I did note that Coleman Road and Chauncey Road, we're looking at shared costs with MDC. They have a responsibility to repair the pavement that's been disturbed for their project. The rest of the pavement's not in the greatest of shape, so sometimes when it's a road that's reasonable for them to leave but would make more sense to mill and overlay. This is the first time we're looking at it on our paving program where we can work with them and partner. Either they'll end up doing the work and we'll pay a portion, or vice versa. Right now, I'm anticipating we'll be doing the work and they would give us a check for what their cost would have been. So the first item up was for the bituminous concrete. We're seeking an increase in the existing Tilcon PO. We've talked about before, the town and many municipalities use state contract for this work. It's higher volume, lower cost. Low bid for us in this sector is Tilcon. The costs are about 6 to 10% lower than they were in 2019 for the previous contract. So we're here, I'm here tonight for approval just to reutilize them again as we did in the spring using the state contract for paving work. Answer any questions anyone might have?
Great. Any questions for Derek on this first of 3 paving bids? Nope. Okay. Is there a motion for tonight's?
I'll make a motion to allocate $430,000 based on the aforementioned state-awarded contract with Tilcon, Connecticut, Inc.
Second.
Thank you both. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Derek. On to 4, and where are we? C. This would be fall reclamation now. So
Yes. We're
you have
looking-
one without the other.
Yeah, we are doing some reclamation work in this program, seeking an increase in the existing Tilcon PO. You may remember from the spring, the DOT had removed reclamation work from their contract this year. That is a contract that us and a lot of towns utilize for this work. So what we did in the spring, we looked at it again. We looked at different options we had. One option that we utilized in the spring was Tilcon had agreed to hold their unit prices from the previous contract that expired at the beginning of this year with a small 1.6% increase for some labor costs. related to that. So that's what we ended up doing in the spring. We did take a look at municipal contracts that might be available for us to piggyback on. We still have the Beacon Falls contract I had spoken with you about in the spring that had, equal or higher costs. West Hartford has also put out a reclamation contract. The pricing that they got was even higher than Beacon Falls. So, both of those wouldn't be great options for us. We could issue a local bid. We did discuss that internally. Similar to West Hartford and Beacon Falls, I would suspect we'd get higher costs, utilizing the state contract, even though we're utilizing an expired contract, with Tilcon's agreement to that is I think, the best dollars we're going to get with our money. So similar to the spring program, I'm recommending using that contract for the fall program for our reclamation-related work.
Any questions for Derek on this? And I'm just reading through some of the comments from the department head. DOT is going to continue to keep, or Tilcon is going to keep their 2019-20 prices from the DOT contract steady. So
Correct.
there's no increase in that. A little bit of an increase in labor costs.
We'd be paying the same rates we paid in the spring.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, so there's no change from spring to fall. This is from 2020 to 2021 labor increase.
Correct. This was the 2019-2020 contract. For 2021, DOT, at the last minute took that out. They had decided they weren't doing that work, so they didn't want to bid it. When we get to over the winter next year, we'll have to reevaluate how we want to handle this going forward, if that's going to remain that way for future state contracts.
Okay. Any other questions for Derek? Okay. Is there a motion on item B4C?
Make a motion to allocate $60,000 to Tilcon, Connecticut, Inc. to reclaim roads during the next paving program using pricing based on previously awarded state contracts.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Aye has it. Motion carries. And now finally, the last award, item B4D. Again, Derek.
Yes, similar to most of our paving programs, I'm seeking an increase in the existing PO for general paving related to the program. As you're probably aware, they've been working for the town a number of years. They are in the last year of their contract extension. Right now, we're working with unit costs that are 10% lower than their 2014 bid, which was the original bid, so they've been keeping their prices down. They do work like minor drainage improvements, road patching, curb apron replacements, removing excess material when we do reclaim a road, maintenance, protection of traffic, so they serve as an extension of our staff. Particularly with the way we're staffed right now, it's very helpful to have them on board. But I'll be coming to you over the winter. We're expecting to put it back out to bid and see how the bids come in on their next contract. But right now, I'm just looking to increase their PO for the next program. They're very helpful with our staff as far as scheduling and coordinating. And as we have used them in the past, I'd like to use them again.
Okay. Any questions for Derek on this one?
Mayor, if I just may real quick.
Sure.
Thank you. Derek, you just mentioned this is the last year of the extension of the contract. Are you capped out at a certain number of years?
Not necessarily. We had extended it 2 times. The last time we extended it a couple years ago, I think the consensus was that we would extend it one more time, and then we would probably be looking at rebidding it. Certainly, that's a discussion we can have with council, at a later date if you want to do that or want to look at another extension. They have been very good to work with. They're very responsive. Their pricing is very reasonable. They supplement what physical services may not have time or the ability to do on a lot of projects. So it's been good to have them as an asset for so long.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a risk if we do bid it that we end up with someone else who's not as responsive and helpful, which could complicate things quite a bit. But that's a discussion we can have at a later date.
Yeah, that was the question I was kind of getting to. It's more of a risk mitigation strategy. Just, they're great to work with. The cost is low, so why bid it out again? Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Maybe, Mr. Town Manager, is there bid requirement so that you can't, you kind of lose the competitive nature if you continue to extend and extend? Is there a policy that says you can only do that for so long, or you're not aware of it?
I don't believe we have a written policy that suggests that. I think our procurement, I'd have to go back and look at the procurement rules set up within the charter and then the ordinances to see. You typically do procurement to try to drive down the prices to keep it competitive. However, there's always exceptions made within, right? So here's a perfect example of how often we've used them, their knowledge. They're almost an extension of Derek's crew because we've worked with them for so long and integrated. It is one of those things that you should always evaluate just to make sure you are getting the best pricing, but there might be other ways to test that to ensure that you are. And if I remember correctly, because this probably goes back 2 or 3 years or 3 years before I was here, some of this was based off of fixing a price that was even a lower percentage than what they had previously quoted. So it's a good practice to go out and rebid on a regular basis and be wary of contract extensions, but it does make sense to do a case by case and review what the impact could be to the organization as a whole.
No further questions? Okay, is there a motion on this particular item?
Make a motion to allocate $410,000 to general paving to complete site preparation and restoration work, draining improvements, and additional support associated with the fall paving program.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Back to the agenda. I believe there are no...
Derek, one last question. Did you win?
Practice tonight.
Oh,
We are playing Weathersfield on Wednesday.
you are, okay.
We'll see.
All-stars.
Well, mine went from a 7-5 lead to a 12-12 tie right now. So, it's nervous. Ordinances, resolutions, and appointments for introduction, we don't have any. Minutes from June 7th, they are in our packet. If everybody had an opportunity to look them over prior to this, great. If not, please do so. If there's any concerns, raise them, and I'm sure Sue will do a great job of correcting any. And if not, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. The minutes.
Abstain, Mayor?
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, typically we don't do the abstention, but minutes, gotta always watch out. So, motion carries 6-0 with 1 abstention. And now back for the second public comment period. Mr. Colantonio.
Good evening. Gus Colantonio, 16 Morrison Avenue. Look how many people we are here tonight. And it's sad. I made this comment before, but every time I ask a friend of mine, says, why don't we go to the town council meeting? And their answer is, what for? Well, so we can say that approve what they're doing or disapprove what they're doing. Oh, no, they never listen. Come on, huh? And it's true. I've been coming here for 10, 12, 13, 14 years, or even more. Nothing ever gets done. The decency of when we ask a question, and I do not really mean to debate something, but if I ask a question, says, the only reason you told me that there is no need for a stop sign is because we have too many stop signs in town. That's no answer. I'm not going to go away. I'm going to complain all the time. Now, on a positive side, I went by Walker Hill Road, and I pay attention. I think, a few of the signs were removed. It's much better. to concentrate on the road or the traffic instead of trying to read the signs. I think probably a couple of them were removed. I could be wrong, but anyway. Let me make another complaint. Silas Dean, I know Silas Dean, it's a state road, so basically we don't really have anything to do except if they don't do the right thing, I think as a town we should be able to complain. In the vicinity of the hardware store right here, not too far from here, not too long ago they did work on a settlement. It looks like, you know, an old trench there. And this is like, you know, on the middle lane, the turning lane, I guess, you know. In this section, there's 5 lanes. And they did some patching just for the middle lane. And there is a dip on both sides, northbound and southbound Silas Dean, which like, you know, how do you say, it goes outside the lane, which covers, you know, 2 or 3 feet more of the northbound left lane and the southbound left lane. And I have to ask the questions, why? The state did some work. Did we check at all? Did we care at all the way they did it? You can see it, that, you know, the way the work was done, it's not correct. That's one thing. Years ago, before they did the overlay between the town line in Hartford and let's say, like, you know, not too far from here on Silas Dean. And I made a comment regarding the lanes coming from Hartford into Weathersfield. Now, today I went by, I went to Bolton, I came back, and so I took off the Route 15 there, you know, the off-ramp, and there I go, like, you know, try to merge on Silas Dean. And I slowed down because there was another car coming in, and the car in the back of me almost hit me. Ha! And you know, it's funny because I complained a few years ago before they redid all of that. Now, let me say that again, okay? This is a lack of accountability for the towns, for this town. In the southbound, Weathersfield Avenue, I guess, it's only 1 lane in the southbound. Yet, as soon as you leave Hartford, you can take a right and do on-ramp, which is 1 lane, 1 right, or you can take a left to go to Old Weathersfield. And, or you can go, like, you know, 2 lanes straight. Basically, like, you know, you have 4 choices after you leave Hartford, 4 choices, 4 lanes, and only 1 car at a time can go by. So I said, years ago, I said, the off-ramp, it should really have its own lane coming out. I said, why make it blended, merged together with, you know, those 2 lanes? Where is the traffic going? No, I don't think anything was ever done, and I brought it up. And this is crazy. Now, Mr. Town Manager, you know, I waited at the end, so because I complained the last 2 weeks ago about the stop sign. Can I get probably an engineering definition why I do not get the stop sign when I need it, when you guys need it, when the requirements call for a stop sign? Why is that? After I told you guys everything, the way it was designed, Morrison Avenue, and the way it is now, this is crazy that you guys don't listen. But that's okay, I'll be here once a month in the next 2 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colantonio. Hey, Mr. Consul.
Now, I know why George liked the comments at the end. John Council, 38 Ivy Lane. Just a couple of comments on the schools. Same comments we had, you're right, Mr. Mayor, 13 years ago or more. Some of the kindergartners are probably in university right now, and we were still talking about boilers back then. And I know Fred Bushy, I used to get on his case all the time, and he would always say they're going to repair boilers and do things. And just from off the top of my head, I think it was like $150,000 or $175,000 to replace the boiler in Hanmer School last time I was on the council, so we're almost doubling the price now. So it's kind of a situation where we should have acted on it a long time ago. I think this council has to really, I never thought I would say this, but really has to bite the bullet, this whole town does. We need 2 new schools. We need Hanmer School and Highcrest School. They have to be replaced. I mean, I've noticed those as time goes on. I think Highcrest School, some of the building, it's cracking and it's sinking because of where it was built and all. But we're just going to have to take, the town's really going to have to move on these and get going. I don't think you could wait 7 years, to be honest with you, because you're just going to make all kinds of patches and it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep these schools going. You may have to close Charles Wright School in order to build these 2 schools, but that's something this council should really start thinking about. The boilers, I've done this in buildings before. High-efficiency boilers that last about 25 years maximum. And I think maybe Mr. Mazzarella, you're like an engineer, you know this stuff. The old boilers, the old cast iron boilers could go 50 or 60 years. There wasn't much to them. They weren't very efficient. All it did was burn fuel and heat water and run it through pipes. But the new efficiency systems that they have now, if you can get 25 years out of them, you're doing very well. So that's something you really should think about too. I know it's going to cost you a little over $300,000, but you shouldn't just keep putting money into these buildings. They got to be replaced. I know Mr. Young probably won't agree with me on this, but it's time. When I was on the council, I used to go on field trips, and I would like all you guys, maybe for the next meeting, to go on a couple of field trips. And without pointing the fingers at anybody that works in the town, go to Weathersfield Cove and look around what the cove looks like, and the parking lot, and the road in and out, and then go down to Rocky Hill and go to their Rocky Hill ferry landing and see how that looks, and compare the 2. Go to the town garage and walk around the town garage and see what's going on there. Then go over to Glastonbury, to Commerce Drive, and go to Eddie Quinn's landscaping company, which is probably the same size as the town garage, and see how efficient that runs compared to ours. Something you may want to look at, just fuel for thought. The fire truck, this was an issue when I was on the council also, and I think a lot of the problems with the fire truck is because it wasn't repaired properly when it had the accidents, and they put inferior parts on these trucks that rusted out, and that's basically what it is. So now it's costing us $200,000 because we accepted low bids years back to fix the truck. It wasn't fixed right. I don't think the companies knew what they were doing, gave the truck back, and of course the truck is running and it operates, but the parts that were put on it and everything, now we're paying for those parts, so we're really paying double for what it should have cost us years ago. And finally, phone calls to the town of Weathersfield. And I got to say, after several weeks of making phone calls to many departments, and I won't mention the departments now, no one has called me back. And I call for certain issues, and I'll tell you that I called the town manager's office 3 times. No one ever called me back, not even an email back. I left numerous numbers. That's not the way this town should operate. And maybe we have to go back to an actual operator that answers the phone and takes messages and makes sure phone calls get sent back to people. It's just wrong. And when a taxpayer has a question, they should get an answer back. Simple as that. There should be no reason why. And the only phone call I did receive was from Mike O'Neill, the finance director, and I called him directly because he's been a friend of mine for 30 years. And I called him at his house to get an answer on things. And he called me back and gave me the information I needed. Shouldn't have to work that way. So also something you should think about as time goes on, how efficient things are running. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Counsel. Mr. Roche?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Shannon Roach. I live at 104 Surrey Drive. I came here tonight because I knew that after the hearing for the former chief that a lot was going to be being said in the community, and I'm quite sure that those of you who voted to dismiss our chief have received a lot of flack behind it. I was here that night, and there's no doubt that the former chief has a ton of support in the community. I mean, 47 years of service, you're going to get some type of support. But while he has a ton of support, I have heard rumblings of things in the community that have concerned me. And one thing that I know just over the past year is that I've personally made a lot of accusations against some of you council members without knowing both sides of the story. And what I hear from people in the community are a lot of accusations, but without definitive proof. And so, you know, I implore those community members to really, you know, take time and let the evidence come out to decide, you know, whether you made the correct decision or not. I will say is that I am proud of my council. We've been very divided for a while now, and this is one of the first times that I've seen the majority of you come together to make a decision for what you felt was best for our community, and I just want to say thank you for that. I'm not going to say whether it was, you know, right or wrong. I don't know the information. Only you guys do. But the fact that you guys came together makes me proud to say that you're my council. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Anybody else wanting to speak in the final? Mr. Young.
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. First, I'd like to thank the the deputy mayor for at least giving me the numbers for that fire truck. 20,000 miles, 2003 a year vehicle, 1,100 miles a year, 3.5 miles per day. And the kind of wreck that it's in really sends a message. Again, how our people take care of our equipment. And again, as I said earlier, it flows right down. The poor attention our equipment gets from those people that use that equipment. I'd like to also say that the discussion on the boiler was interesting as far as how quickly and eager you were to spend money. From what I understand, this wasn't even on the budget, was it? In the budget for this next year or whatever. Is it? No. It's just, the budget was just signed last week, and here you have an item that pops up that probably was on there, or probably was not on there, and now throw a new item in and make the budget larger. In a sense, that's what you've done. And you know, while I'm sitting out here, I'm thinking about the discussions I've had with you about the education system. You easily could go and get state of Connecticut to go and hook up with online remote learning for our high school honors and high honor students. And you could empty out half of the high school rooms. And you could move those younger students from Hanmer and move them into Charles Wright next door. I don't know where the other schools are, I guess up on Highcrest. You could do some moving around, and the students that would be losing, you know, the ones that are in their current rooms that would be moving up to the high school, filling up those seats, and you could have demolished the Hanmer School and forgot about spending money on a new boiler and put some kind of housing in there, 55 and over, whatever, I don't know what. But the fact is, it just, Sally comes up here, she needs this, bang, go. There's no thought about long-term. Long-term, if you got into a program where our students were learning remote on a regular daily basis for the most older students we have, I think would add benefit to our school system. I think it would show that we're innovative and we're willing to step out. Look, the state of Massachusetts is loaded with this type of learning for their high school students. We're not doing that. I don't know who in the state of Connecticut is doing that, but there are states that are doing that, and they're buying into that service. Get the governor to buy it. He's got a lot of rescue money, and as part of the coronavirus, granted, I think he'll cut back on some monies he sends you every year, because he says, well, we're supporting 400 students of yours, so we're going to cut you back a little bit. But so what? We could unload this worst school in that manner. Well, you didn't even think about it. You don't even care about it. And that's how the town of Weathersfield operates. It's the same idea all over this town. It's just spend. It's easier to spend than to fix the problem in the long term. And it starts right here. If you don't step up and be innovative and try to save money and cut back everywhere, other places, wherever you can, nobody else is going to do it. And the taxes will keep going up. And as I say, in the next year or two, what are you going to do with taxes when rescue money runs out? It says right here, the state faces fiscal cliff when stimulus grants expire. What are you going to do then? Hey, have a nice night. Disappointing.
Thank you. Any other comments at all? Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it.